former Player of the Year. On the right, you've got a former Invitational winner. On the left, two very accomplished and skilled magicians are going to duke it out here in a classic matchup of aggro versus control. And we'll see if Tietze can win again, or if Turtenwald can get a little revenge and move on to the move on to the semifinals.
Yeah, Owen actually is a mono red deck. He's full of Revelation decks on his side of the bracket. Owen has a great sideboard card, and he has two Hammer Perforoses, which really have helped him in the matchup.
Tietze going to start with an Azorius Guildgate. Turtenwald not going to start with a 1-drop. He's got 12 of those in his deck, but he does not have one here, which means to me, we're probably going to see some Burning Tree Emissaries, as Tietze is going to play a turn 2 Ratchet Bomb and pass the turn back, but noticeable there that his second land is a Mutavault.
Right, so what Owen did here, maybe he has the Burning Tree Emissary, but it's questionable whether or not he wants to make it now because of that Ratchet Bomb that was played. Owen doesn't want Tietze's entire board swept by Ratchet Bomb.
Hallowed Fountain going to come down there for Tietze. Tap, just have that Ratchet Bomb up at 1 counter as Turtenwald's going to draw his card. Not in a very aggressive start here for Owen, as he's going to play a Chandra's Phoenix, Mutavault as the third land, turn both those creatures sideways.
Yeah, that Mutavault does mean that he doesn't have to fear Azorius Charm from Tietze. But he does actually get some damage, and he finally has Tietze down to 16.
Yeah.
He's on the scoreboard, but a little slow.
Yeah. Tietze going to tap 3 mana. Looks like we might see a Detention Sphere take care of the Chandra Phoenix, but no fourth land. As Turtenwald's going to untap his Firefish Striker, he's going to draw his card. You see that Ratchet Bomb ready to blow it up. Maybe he'll activate Mutavault and get in there that way.
Owen has a couple options. He drew another Chandra's Phoenix. Fortunately, that Detention Sphere for him came down before he played the second Phoenix.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Owen's a little heavy on lands right now, but you can kind of like smell blood in the water there when you see them miss that fourth land drop.
But Tietze did draw an island for the turn. He's already got the necessary double white to cast Supreme Verdict, so it's going to clear up the Phoenix and the Cackler. Going to pass the turn back to Turtenwald. Tietze sitting at 14, Turtenwald at 20. Has a Firefish Striker, has a Mountain, couple other cards there too.
Owen has 4 Shocks and 4 Lightning Strikes, and those are the only ways he can rebuy that Chandra's Phoenix from the graveyard. I think it's important right now, and Owen agrees, to get the Mutavault damage in while he can. That Shock and rebuy is something he can do much later if he needs to.
So in comes the Mutavault. See Cackler and Firefish Striker did come across. Turtenwald hoping there's not another Supreme Verdict, but there is. Going to 2 for 1 again. Tietze with no land means it's a spell. Turtenwald going to activate Mutavault, get in for 2, put Tietze down to 10. You can see exactly why Mutavault is great in this mono red deck.
Yeah, Owen has drawn a lot of lands. He now has a 6th land as their last card in his hand. He has him Tietze down to 10, but that's really not enough right now. Right, it looks like Max is going to establish control of this board. What Owen really would want to hope for is something like a Lightning Strike that will let him rebuy this Chandra's Phoenix, get that free damage and get another creature. But right now, it looks like he's just a little short.
So Tietze is going to tap some mana here.
It's a Divination, I believe. He's running 3 Divinations in the main.
Draws another Mutavault here among some of his lands, so I'm not sure if he has a Guildgate, another Hallowed Fountain, but Divination was able to draw him a couple of cards.
Did he hit the land? That's the real question.
Yeah. It's a really big deal to see right now if he did. He did find a Hallowed Fountain. He's going to pass the turn back. So shields down here for Tietze. Means Turtenwald can get in for a bunch of damage if he has some sort of haste card or Lightning Strike, as you mentioned. We see 2 mana being tapped. Burning Tree Emissary.
Yeah, so Tietze had a really tough decision there as to whether or not he wanted to play the Hallowed Fountain tapped or untapped. He decided tapped because untapped means he'd have to trade the Mutavault. I think he actually just wants the lands right now.
So Tietze's going to go down to 6. Turtenwald, of course, still sitting at 20. His life total is always going to be high here. He doesn't have to worry about that. The thing you have to think about here, too, Matthias, is that imagine if Turtenwald didn't have a Mutavault this game. Mutavault has put in a lot of work.
Mutavault's great. Mutavault and Chandra's Phoenix are the cards that weren't in the mono red block deck that give it a little bit of resilience to Supreme Verdict. That said, second Supreme Verdict is still very, very difficult for him to get by.
Yeah.
We did see where Max Tietze's deck does shine when he defeated Owen 2-1 back in round 7 was that he has 2 Elspeth Suns champions, and those are cards that he can actually just instant stabilize the board with.
Yeah, that's going to make it really difficult as it just does pump out those creatures, can defend itself. I think we're about to see it right now, and there is the Suns champion, that brand new Planeswalker. Elevator going up, 3 tokens are going to come on out.
And this is just huge. Owen has no way to get by it right now. He has to hope for that searing, that Lightning Strike into Chandra's Phoenix play, and it really has to be now. He has 2 more mountains, though. I mean, to be fair, a mono red deck, it's a 22 land deck. when Owen gets 7 lands in his hand, that's going to be difficult for him immediately.
Quick update for you guys on our backup camera match. Jared Betcher has defeated Christian Calcano in game number 1 faster than somehow the Mono Red versus Blue White control game is
that's an
taking.
Esper mirror match.
Yeah.
My guess is it's if one player stalls out on lands and the other player just can roll.
Turn 1 going to attack with all 3 creatures. Battalion's going to trigger on the striker, makes it so that a creature cannot block. You see the Tietze is going to be blocking this way. Striker going to bite the dust, but Turtenwald does get through 2 points of damage. Put Tietze down to 4. Going to play one of those mountains and pass the turn back.
This is what Owen has to do. This gives him that out of Searing Spear or Shock into Chandra's Phoenix. Granted, that out requires that Tietze not play anything. I believe Tietze does have that Revelation in hand, which is going to make things very difficult for Owen to win.
You see a Detention Sphere over there, at least one Azorius card in his hand. Does he have a Revelation in his hand? That's actually the big question, as of course the Sun Champion is going to move up. 3 more soldiers going to come into play there for Tietze.
So despite the fact that he can Detention Sphere here, we may not see him... I was going to say, we're not going to see him cast it because the most important thing for Tietze to do is to draw out of that burn range. We're counting Chandra's Phoenix as a burn spell. Elspeth's going to stabilize the board very nicely just by herself. Really, the only thing that can get by her is burn spells to the face and flyers. Tietze has the Detention Sphere to take care of a possible flyer, and the Sphinx's Revelation takes care of burn spells to the face.
So Tietze pushes himself up to 8. Now here is Lightning Strike. Going to put Tietze down to 5. Chandra's Phoenix going to come back to the hand. Turtenwald going to cast that momentarily, I believe, and probably put Tietze down to 3, but we'll see. We will see.
Yeah, it's actually not enough because Tietze does have that. Thanks to Sphinx's Revelation, it's no longer lethal.
He says, Turtenwald says, I'm not going after Elspeth, I'm going after you. Tietze puts him down to 3 and passes the turn back.
Yeah, now he had the option there to play that hold card in his hand, which is a land, and attack with Mutavault and Burning Tree Emissary and trade them for the soldier tokens. They may not have all been traded, they may have just been chumped blocked. I think Owen sees there's more value here in representing a bluff. He just doesn't ever think he'll actually get through the Elspeth. So there's no point in removing those tokens. She's just going to make more.
I think if you're Turtenwald, the one card you're looking to draw here is another Lightning Strike, but you see Tietze does have an Azorius Charm in his hand. He can use the, quote, hidden mode, unquote, on the Azorius Charm and use Lifelink to put him out of range of a Lightning Strike if he'd like.
Yeah, that's certainly, if he sees that, that's certainly one way just to gain 4 life. If he wants any sort of life gain spell here is great. He just needs to buy turns until, so that Elspeth can take over the game. You know, using Azorius Charm to gain 4 is great. I think instead he's just going to go in Revelation for 5 more.
Now he's going to go up to 8 now is Tietze. 2, 3, 4, and 5 cards. Most of them lands, actually, but an Azorius Charm among them.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter what they are. As we saw before, Tietze's game plan was he just kept plussing the Elspeth until he could go on 1 turn, make an emblem, and swing the entire life total at once.
Okay.
And I think he's going to do that again. Owen's not removing the blockers, and that's actually just next turn. Tietze probably will wait 1 more turn just to be sure.
So Turtenwald going to draw his card, play a mountain. Doesn't look like he has a lot of action here. The Phoenix. Now it's going after Elspeth, and that's kind of like a white flag there.
Yeah, I mean, he knows that next turn, I guess Max could make the emblem, activate both Mutavaults, and, you know, swing for 29 damage in the air.
That's it?
Just 29.
So now Tietze is going to tap some mana here. You see 3 of it. Looks like it might be Detention Sphere time on that Phoenix. It is. That's going to go bye-bye. A way that Turtenwald cannot take care of. So now 3 more tokens are going to get pumped out via Elspeth. And you can see that this new Planeswalker can win games on its own, provided you have enough time to get to it.
Yeah, I mean, especially against a mono-red deck, so a deck that has no way to remove her. They can't really attack past her. This card is just excellent at closing games against mono-red.
Turtenwald draws his card for the turn.
Yeah, 2 mana. Okay, Gorehouse Chainwalker.
You're a little late.
Yeah, Owen's playing this out really just for the formality of it. He needs to be proven that Max isn't gonna somehow let the game go. But I think Owen has no expectation of winning this anymore.
Hey, certainly no reason to concede. Make your opponent kill you. It's kind of the Reed Duke school of magic, as it were. Tietze going to tap 4 mana. Here comes the Jace, Architect of Thought. He's building a castle that Turtenwald cannot penetrate, as that's going to move on up. Elspeth going to make 3 more soldiers, provided that we do have 3 more soldiers over there. Which, thankfully, we do. See if he's got anything else to do this turn, as Tietze is certainly in the driver's seat. Going to play a Plains and just pass back.
As long as Owen doesn't play Swamp, Rakdos Charm, Max is in great position here.
Turtenwald, 2 more mana. I think this is a Goblin shortcutter. One of those tokens can't block. Here comes the Mutavault, going to turn them all sideways.
See if this works. There's no way this works.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Turtenwald making sure that Tietze remembers his trigger on his Jace. You see there's just going to be 3 blockers there. Those guys are all going to go away. Pass the turn back. And as we bring Elspeth up on the screen for you guys, you can see exactly what that ultimate does do. -7, which is where we are. You get an emblem, creatures you control get +2/+2.5 flying, turn them all sideways, and Turtenwald's going to pick them all up. So, Max Tietze, the number 2 seed, who's already defeated Owen Turtenwald once in this tournament, is up a game yet again. Blue-Eye Control up over Mono Red, as we're going to bring it back to the booth for you guys with Matthias and I, so we can give away some trivia. It's about that time, don't you think? Matthias, I think do I have the question? You have the question
this time, so I'll explain the rules here. So those of you who have not watched one before, during the top 8 of our Star City Games Opens, we give away varying amounts of Star City Games Premium. The first question will be worth 3 months of Star City Premium, second 6, and the last one will be worth an entire year of Star City Games Premium. As we're in the top 8, this is the first question, so it's going to be for 3 months of Star City Premium. Cedric's going to ask us a question here, and then you're going to tweet the answer. And make sure you have the hashtag SCG Premium on your answer. At the end, when the entire top 8 is concluded, then one correct responder will be randomly selected to receive 3 months of Star City Premium.
And the question is, within Owen Turtenwald's sideboard, he has a 2 of. Now, typically, and if you guys have been with us for most of the show, you saw Owen Turtenwald play multiple times on camera. You've seen this card. It's used against control decks. We were a little surprised to see that Owen wasn't playing Burning Earth.
Right.
But instead he's chosen this option. It is a 2 of in his sideboard. I'll give you a hint. It is an enchantment. It also happens to be an artifact 2, and it's legendary. So if you can name that legendary enchantment artifact, do tweet at us with the hashtag of SCG Premium. And again, we will select one winner from the people who do get it correct. So it is about accuracy, not speed, and we will announce the winner at the conclusion of our quarterfinals.
All right.
Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, sideboard time. We're going to go to Turtenwald's. We'll take a look here. He's got 3 copies of Boros Ragnar, 3 copies of Flames of the Firebrand, 3 Peak Eruption to go along with 2 Mizzian Mortars, 1 Active Trees, and a Skullcrack, and 2 Hammer of Porphyros. I think the Hammers are going to come in. You also take a look, you see the Skullcrack as well, but anything else besides that? I know you covered the last match.
Right, the last time he played this, those were the only things he boarded, and we actually never even saw the Skullcrack.
Okay.
The Hammer almost... It was actually pretty interesting in the game against Max. Max won a game 3 where he really underestimated the Hammer and made a play where he established early control and then almost lost to Hammer and Porphyros.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to make that mistake again. Max is a pretty strong player, but that's Owen's best weapon, and I'm sure we'll see it again.
Owen's got very few weapons, but Max looks to be he has plenty of them. I mean, he's got Yoked Ox in the sideboard, a Celestial Fair, 2 Last Breath, 3 Negate, 2 Jace Memory Adept, 3 Glare of Hearsay, and 2 Pithing Needles. Those Oxen, a Celestial Fair and 2 Last Breath, I think those are going to come in. Those 5 cards.
Those
Maybe
5
Negate,
cards.
but I doubt it.
Well, Mac has a bunch of cards which he doesn't really like in the matchup. The Etherling is really not very good for him here. He's playing 1 main deck Quicken. I'm not positive what that's for. I think he'll probably keep that in so that he can Quicken a Supreme Verdict at a Mutavault and have that option. He'll most likely cycle the card. That's fine. He needs to just make sure that he plays a lot of spells in the early games. He's going to play those 5 cards, probably board out things like Etherling, Dissolve, maybe even some number of Divination in the matchup.
Okay. So those are the options for both of the players. So they are shuffled up and ready to go here just about. Doesn't surprise you too much that the sideboard doesn't take too long for either one of these incredibly skilled players. Again, they've already played each other once during round number 8. And during that round number 8, both players were sitting at 7-0. Tietze delivered Turtenwald his first loss in the tournament. He was able to double draw in. That's why you see that he's our 2 seed. Turtenwald, he had to win another match, which he did. He drew in during round 10, and we're back at it again.
Absolutely. So this game 2 is the game that Owen's supposed to win. We've seen in all these matchups of mono red versus control decks that being on the play has been very important. So this is the game where he's favored. Last time Owen played Max, it played out exactly this way too. Max won the die roll, won game 1, Owen won game 2, Max took game 3.
So, I mean, of course, back against the wall, Turtenwald certainly can't lose another game, but if he's going to win one, it's certainly going to be the one on the play, and then he's going to have to try to steal one on the draw.
This is the easy one. The next one's the hard one.
Yeah, I bet Owen's heart skipped a beat there when you saw Max miss his 4th land drop in that game 1. He might go, oh, I might be able to steal this one,
Yeah,
but he wasn't able to.
Owen had a pretty subpar start there too. Well, he started out with no 1 drop, and then his first 2 drop was just a 2-1, was just a Firefist Striker. He actually didn't have the Burning Tree Emissary for it. I think he kept the hand based on the double Chandra's Phoenix. I wonder if he changes his assessments at all. My guess is he has this pretty laid out how he wants to play it, but we've seen a couple mono red versus control matchups, and that draw has universally not won.
Yeah.
You know, the turn 1 nothing, turn 2 piker, it hasn't really mattered what the follow-up was. It has not been good enough.
All right, so both these players do finish shuffling again. We will keep track of our other matchups that are taking place. We've got Esper Control from Andrew Davis, our 1 seed, playing against Philip Bertorelli, playing mono red. So we'll see if we can figure out what's going on there in our 1 versus 8 match. We've also got Chris Posparellis playing against David Napoleano. That's a Gruul versus Naya mid-range match. And one thing that we do know is that Jared Betcher with Esper Control is up a game against Christian Calcano in the Esper Mirror.
Yeah, so remember that the winner of that's going to play the winner of this game. That's something that Max really probably isn't looking forward to. If he wins, he knows he's playing an Esper control deck. We've seen that matchup play out a couple times on camera, and it's very difficult for the blue-white deck.
Yeah, it takes a little while as far as the games go with the Revelations and the J-Stings back and forth, but every time we've seen that the Esper decks do have a pretty good edge because the black cards that they have access to are very, very good in the matchup with Thoughtseize, Duress, potentially Sin Collector as well. They're very, very happy with their options there. So you see both players are going to be shuffling up quite a bit here. It's been a fun weekend so far. We crowned our team sealed champion. Gerard Fabiano, Eric Smith, and Curtis Shue. Those guys were able to bring a trophy back to New Jersey, so congratulations once again to them. The runner-ups, of course, being Jim Davis, Peter Ingram, and, the guy on the left side of our camera, Max Tietze.
Yeah, so a pretty good weekend for Max. A double, I want to say top 8. That's not entirely true. You could say, like, break round. You know, when you talk about, like, you making the break, making the cut, into whatever the top, whatever it is, you could say he broke at both halves.
He's made it to the elimination rounds.
He made the elimination rounds both times.
Which is the goal of any tournament that you do go to. So Max has got to be pretty pleased, even happier that he's up a game, but he's not showing it right now.
No. Max pretty stoic during his games.
No, you're not gonna get him to break face unless he wins the tournament. Then the smiles will come out. I've seen him in the winners' interviews before. He's pretty stoked when he does win a tournament. That's when the real emotion comes out there. Always thinking his girlfriend whenever he does win. So we'll see if we can get a repeat performance of that here, as he is sitting pretty up a game, and which you could argue is a pretty good matchup for him. Now, let's not say that Owen's a sloucher. He is a former Player of the Year. So if you're going to defeat a mono red player, you're going to have to get by the best one here.
All right, so looking like. Yep, going to cuts here. We'll have game 2. Owen knows Max's sideboard. I remember he didn't like the matchup. He didn't like that this was his top 8 pairing. I think Owen overestimates how much hate is in Max's sideboard. He said, I was talking to him, he said, this match is unwinnable. He has Celestial Flares, Yoked Oxes, Last Breaths, just everything. And while that's true, it's like Max has 1 or 2 of all of those cards.
Yeah.
He's running a diversity of spells. That said, that probably is Mono Red's one of those decks that if you devote enough slots to beating it, you will beat it. And I do think Max has done that today.
Turtenwald takes a look. Doesn't look thrilled with this hand, but he said he is going to keep it. See if Tietze is happy with his starting 7 or not.
Close. Now remember, Tietze pretty much has to have a Supreme Verdict in his opening hand.
And so that's where Tietze is going to take a mulligan down to at least 6 cards right now. So if you're Turtenwald, this is a step in the right direction. You see Tietze taking a mulligan down to at least 6 here. Again, this is a matchup that I think is going to happen quite a bit here over the course of the format. Again, I think we're going to see a lot of people playing blue-white control. Additionally, I think we're going to see a lot of people playing mono-red, at least in the beginning stages of the format. So this is a matchup I think people are going to see a lot of and have to get used to.
Those are 2 of the most obvious decks. Remember, the Revelation decks were all over block constructed. That wasn't to say there was only one kind of Revelation deck. You saw blue-white, just straight blue-white. You saw Esper. You also saw blue-white-red, which splashed for counterflux. Just, one way to win the counterspell war is to just not play it. Just have your counters uncounterable. That said, there were other decks that did play out. We saw Team SCG running a Bant deck. at the Pro Tour. We saw a Boros deck make top 4 in the hands of Josh Utter-Layton. There were other options in the format. I do think, though, these are the standout. I mean, these were the obvious decks.
Yeah.
So that's why I think our top 8, I think, has so much mono red and blue-white control.
I can't really disagree with you. These are great starting points, and as our format does develop, you see people are going to try some new things. You're going to find some new homes for cards. Again, there are a lot of powerful cards in this format. Among them, Steam Augury. We haven't seen a lot of Mizium Mortars this weekend either. So I think there's a lot of cards, Xenagos, for example, that we haven't seen yet, but I think we will over the course of these next couple of months.
So Max trying out a 6-card hand. And the difficult part is that on the draw, so on the play, Max can be a little more loose with his hands. If his hand has a turn 4 Supreme Verdict, he can usually keep it. On the draw, that's not going to be good enough. He usually needs the Supreme Verdict and interaction beforehand, which is why it's so hard for him to keep hands on the draw.
The nightmare is here in the Yolk Docks for Turtenwald. You see Tietze does have the 0-4. Turtenwald with just the Cackler. He says, all right, in I come. And now here's a Firefish Striker past the turn back.
So Firefish Striker last time was Owen's good answer to Yolk Docks, and he has it again this game, fortunately. And even if Max has his 2-mana kill spell in the form of Azorius Charm, that won't stop the trigger from Firefish Striker. Max will need something like Last Breath to actually let the Ox do its work here.
Alright, so Tietze, ever careful on his second turn, figure out what land he wants to play, what he does want to set up. You see an Azorius Charm in his hand right now. I think he's got a Howled Fountain that he's considering playing untapped as well.
Yeah, I don't know if he has the untapped blue source. And remember, every time you shock for a shotgun in this matchup, it's like you're drawing your opponent a card.
No.
So,
fortunately for Tietze, it's because he's blue-white and not Esper. He only has 4 of those shotguns in his deck. For Esper decks, you look at Calcano's list, he has 12, but Tietze is going to take 2 and pass the turn back.
and that's unfortunately, that also completely telegraphs his play to Owen.
Yeah.
I don't think Owen can play around it, so Owen's just, he has to run headlong into the Azorius Charm, but he knows it's coming at this point. He either knows that Max has an Azorius Charm or that Max only has 2 lands and has maybe another 2-mana trick.
Sure. Here's your Mountain. There's your Chandra's Phoenix. Is this going to buy an Essence Scatter, perhaps?
Yeah, there is 1 Essence Scatter in the main deck for Tietze. Probably not. Chandra's Phoenix is a terrible creature to Essence Scatter.
Ooh.
It's a great creature to Syncopate, though.
Yes, it is. So you see there's going to be a block here, and Tietze's going to go down to 16. And we're going to pass the turn back, so what a really good Syncopate.
Maybe it was not, I stand corrected, it was not a Telegraph of Azorius Charm at all. It was a much stronger card than that in the form of Syncopate.
Azorius Skillgate comes into play for Tietze. He's going to pass the turn back to Turtenwald. Getting that Chandra Phoenix exiled is a big deal. As you see, Turtenwald's going to come across here in the red zone. The Ox is ready to block, but are we going to use that Azorius Charm on the Striker or the Cackler? If at all.
Yeah, Owen's swinging here pre-combat to bait a possible Azorius Charm. It's, if he has something like Hammer or Perforos that he really wants to resolve, it's really good to do it in this order.
Yep, and there is your Azorius Charm on the Firefish Striker. So no damage dealt. But now there's a Flames of the Firebrand. So Turtenwald brought that in to get this stupid Ox out of the way.
And when Owen's bringing in cards like Flames of the Firebrand, that's got to be good for Tietze. Even though Owen's on the play, this game, Max is at a pretty high life total for having a turn 4.
Desperate times, desperate measures, as it were. Here's a Ratchet Bond from Tietze. Tietze does not have a lot of cards in his hand. If you're Owen, you got to be thrilled that wasn't a Jace Architect of Thought. As here comes the 2 damage from the Cackler.
Well, you have to hope is that Max has already won the early game in the sense that, we've reached turn 4 and Max's life total is great. It's 15. The problem, so now what Owen has to hope is that Max can't win the late game. Remember, his late game cards are the 2 Elspeth Sun Champions, 4 Jace Architects of Thought, and the 3 Sphinx's Revelations if Max has enough lands to go with him. So that actually is 9 cards. It's a little, it's likely that Max has a late game card, but if he doesn't, this is the kind of game that Owen can still get.
So the Ratchet Bomb's going to tick up to 1. Firefish Striker does come into play. I'm not sure if Turtenwald has any more plays here. It doesn't look like he does. Tietze going to cast Last Breath. Take care of the Striker. Turtenwald going to go up to a fairly irrelevant 24, but for Tietze, he's got 1 card left. He just drew a Supreme Verdict, and he's going to play what looks to be a Guild Gate here. Some sort of land looks like it's going to come up like tap right now.
Max has really succeeded in winning the early game. And you're absolutely right, it's the Guild Gate. He basically has a clean slate here where he'll wipe every permanent off Owen's board, but he doesn't have a way to close yet. And he could be in trouble if Owen draws a card like Hammer of Perforce.
Now there's your 1-for-1. Bomb takes care of that. Here's the Fire Drink Crusader. Turtenwald says go. Tietze draws his card. Looks like it was a land.
So with 3 cards in hand, at least one of Owen's cards is a Lightning Strike right now. He has a fair amount to burn, and it's just going to go to the dome.
So down to 10 goes Tietze. If you're Turtenwald, it's that sinking feeling of hoping that your opponent does not have Sphinx's Revelation, as here is Chandra's Phoenix, in comes the Satyr and the Phoenix. Tietze going to go down to 6. We know he has Supreme Verdict in his hand. Probably around that time to cash it in.
I mean, he's got to. I don't think he can actually go to 2. It's unfortunate for Max because that Chandra's Phoenix is going to get rebought.
So cash it in he does. Kills everything. Turtenwald draws his card. Looks like a Burning Tree Emissary to start. It is. Trigger. Lightning Strike coming upstairs, putting Tietze down to 3. Give me my Phoenix back past the turn. Hoping to dodge a Revelation again.
Yeah, and I don't know the last card in Owen's hand, but yeah, it looks like he has to dodge a Revelation. At this point, well, a Jace buys Max a turn. Elspeth might work, and boom.
Rev for 3. Hit 1, hit 2, hit 3. Looks like a healthy amount of lands in that Revelation, though. Not a lot of business spells. You saw an Island and Mutavault. Mutavault's going to come into play. Tietze sitting at a decent life total here. Turtenwald going to tap the 3 mana. Give me the Phoenix. In for 3.
So Max wisely played that main phase in case Owen had another Lightning Strike. What that does mean, though, is that Owen was able to knock Max back down to 2. Max in dire straits once again.
Has Detention Sphere in the grip. Clean answer for the Phoenix. Has Mutavault ready to block for the Burning Tree Emissary, so it's not over yet.
It's not over, but here's the worry. Owen has had cards in his hand the entire game and has had opportunities to cast any 1 or 2 drop that he might have. So there's 2 possibilities. Either Owen is trying to not get blown up by Verdict and he's continuing to save creatures, or Owen has a burn spell. Max really has to hope it's not the second one, because I don't think he can stop that one.
And if you're Turtenwald, you're really hoping that Tietze does not have another copy of Sphinx's Revelation, but it does not look like he does. You see Tietze is going to rearrange his mana. He's going to cast the Supreme Verdict to clear up those 2 creatures, as we do have a quick update here for you guys as well. Chris Hosperellis defeats David Napolitano. So, Gruul is moving on, defeating Naya mid-range. He'll be playing the winner of Andrew Davis and Philip Bertelli in the Esper Control versus Mono Red matchup, as Mutavault got into the red zone here. Turtenwald, the shields are basically down. Here's a mountain. There is Flames of the Firebrand going upstairs, and it's going to be good enough. So we are going on to game number 3 here between Turtenwald and Tietze. Mono Red fights back in game number 2 against Blue-White Control, but now Turtenwald's in the tough spot of being on the draw.
I mean, that did not go at all according to plan for Owen Turtenwald. You know, Max made it to turn 4 with 15 life. Owen let Max get 8 lands into play. He let Max Revelation for 3, and just because of the timing of things, Owen was able to, with the help of 2 Lightning Strikes to the dome and a Flames of the Firebrand to the dome, was able to do 9 points of burn at the end there to get it. It's a method, it's a way he can win, but it's really not his preferred way to win.
See, Turtenwald's going to go back to the sideboard. He's on the draw now, so he might want to change the composition of his deck. Looks like he's moving some cards out here. You see, Tietze is going to go back to his sideboard as well. Decisions for both of these players. And if you guys are just joining us, Cedric Phillips, Matthias Hunt, we are in the quarterfinals of our Standard Open here in Worcester, Massachusetts. We do appreciate you guys joining us all weekend long, as we are being updated right now that Christian Calcano does win game number 2 in the Esper Mirror match against Jared Betcher. So those guys are going to be going on to a 3rd and final game to see who is going to play the winner of this match between Max Tietze and Owen Turtenwald. Matthias, game number 3, you've got Tietze on the play with Blue-White Control. The favorite?
Owen struggled mightily to beat a 6-card hand from Max Tietze on the draw. When Tietze gets a full 7 on the play, I think that this is solidly in his favor.
All right, and he's got good sideboard cards against him too. He got the Yoke Ox ×2. He's got the Celestial Fair. He's also got those 2 copies of Last Breath. Board out some of the mediocre cards, tighten his deck up a little bit here. And again, being on the play looks to be crucial in this matchup. So that higher seeding for Tietze, a really big deal here.
Yeah, the higher seeding. I mean, as we've seen that they've played 5 games between the two of them, and the person on the play has won every game up until this point. So Owen's really going to have to break that trend if he wants to win here.
Yeah. He's got to break serve to be able to move on to the semifinals to play the winner of Betcher and Calcano. So he can play against an Esper deck, which I think is where he'd much rather be.
Yeah, he'd
play against blue-white.
Yeah, I'd much rather be against an Esper deck for sure. I mean, it still in the end is the same matchup, but there's just slight details that change that all push it in Owen's favor. Especially just because no control deck sideboard looks the same. Control decks can gain points based on the sideboard. They get to choose what deck they want to try to win against. Max today chose to try to beat Mono Red. He has Yoked Ox in his sideboard. That is only good against Burning Tree Emissary decks. I think Owen has a better matchup against pretty much any other control opponent because it's really unlikely that another opponent has chosen to put both Yoked Oxes and Last Breath and Celestial Flares on his board.
Yeah. All right, so both players finishing shuffling up here, and we are going to be good to go and underway momentarily. Of course, if you guys do want to join us on Twitter at SCG Live, hashtag SCGWOR for your tweets as we close out these elimination rounds and get ourselves a champion in the first Standard Open with Theros in the format. Don't forget, of course, we'll be announcing the winner for our 3 months of premium after the conclusion of our quarterfinal round. We've also got 6 and 12 months to give away in the semifinals and finals respectively. So if you want to check out some fantastic articles by Brian Kibler, Jerry Thompson, Brad Nelson, William Huey Jensen, who's in attendance this weekend, and Reed the Duke, you have the opportunity to win the free stuff. So make sure you stick with us all night long.
Alright, so moving into game 3, we did see that Owen changed some main deck and sideboard cards. And I kind of want to look at that here. Owen, we did see boarded in Flames of the Firebrand, which that's different, or may or may not be different than what he did when they played in round 8. That I think might be him being on the play. On the draw, he's going to have to lower his curve a little bit just because Max gets to Revelation earlier. You know, that plan of burning Max out may not be as robust right now. He may have to be more reliant on creatures.
Alrighty, so Tietze ready, going to present the deck over to Turtenwald. Players are going to lay out their hands, take a look at the starting 7, and we are going to be underway here in game 3 between these competitors. Turtenwald quickly taking a look at his hand, Tietze deliberately looking at his.
Yeah, Owen got a little bit of a gift last game when Tietze went to 6 cards. He kept hand with a lot of great early game action, but none of the late game action. Didn't hit the Revelation in time. This game, we get a 7-on-7.
Hallowed Fountain to begin for Tietze. Turtenwald going to move his way. He's going to start with a 1-drop this time. It's Fire Drinker Satyr, and we are underway.
Yeah, so we have with the Hallowed Fountain, that means that he at least he probably dodged the Yoked Ox. I mean, it could happen turn 2 here. But now Max being on the play means that Owen has a variety of things that he could be playing into here. You know, there's the Last Breath, there's Azorius Charm, there's no Celestial Flare because Max did not leave up double white.
Turtenwald plays a Mutavault and he says, all right, I'm going to attack. And Azorius Charm's going to put that back on top. Turtenwald with the follow-up play of Gorehouse Chainwalker, pass the turn back.
Yeah, and Azorius Charm is so good on 1-drops. Those are the kind of cards that you really want on turn 1, but tend to be worse on the other turns. Fortunately for Owen's deck, I think he's happy to draw 1-drop on almost any turn, so the damage that Azorius Charm does is a little less than you'd normally expect. One question, though, as Owen recasts the Satyr, is how much he wants to commit to the board, and you're going to see actually not that much.
Yeah. And that's the reason I love Mutavault, is it forces him to not have to commit that many things to the board. Now, Last Breath could be devastating on Mutavault, but that's a card that Tietze only has 2 of, so it's not a card that I think Turtenwald's ever really going to play around. And I like the way that he can pace this game the way that he wants to, by being able to play a 1-drop, activate a Mutavault, get in that way. But you see Tietze is going to tap some lands, and there is a Last Breath on a Mutavault. So Turtenwald is going to move up to, again, a fairly irrelevant 24, but is he going to get 3 points of damage through?
Yeah, and there were some decisions there. Say if Tietze also had an Azorius Charm, you know, do you charm the Firewalker? Do you charm the Mutavault? Those are actually like some pretty interesting calls he can make here. We see that Tietze's 4th land is a Guildgate. We do not know whether he has a Supreme Verdict, but right now I don't even think he'd cast it if he had it. I think he's waiting to milk more value out of it. Now that Owen doesn't have the Mutavault, he can kind of force Owen to make more plays.
This is interesting here because of this Ader and its ability to be able to make shift fire breathing, Turtenwald doesn't have to extend anymore. He's got this thing that can pump, and so
Exactly.
Turtenwald says, "Hey, here's my threat. You got to deal with this wave of enemies first. And you do that, then I'll present another wave, and Supreme Verdict's going to take care of the first wave of guys."
You can only have a 2-for-1, not a 3-for-1.
So the draw here from Turtenwald, you see he has a mountain in his hand. Maybe he's got a Chandra's Phoenix to turn the speed back on. Looks like he's got a couple creatures over there. He's going to start with a Founder Street Denizen. Going to follow this up with a Firefish Striker. And going to pass turn back.
Yeah, he's holding a mountain in his hand right now just to keep Max guessing. The more burn spells Max thinks Owen has, the more conservative Max has to play.
Now, this is no land here from Tietze. So if you're Turtenwald, you're kind of happy, but you're also kind of sad because that means that your opponent has all spells in their hand. As Turtenwald's going to play a mountain here. There is a Gorehouse Chainwalker. He wants to trigger that Foundry Street Denizen.
And the dangerous part of this board is that Max probably has another Supreme Verdict. What you have to worry about is Max could have counter spells. Those aren't very good. That's fine. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, like middle case, is he's going to Revelation for 2. You're not really thrilled about that. Best case scenario is his hand is all Elspeth Sun Champions and he just never hits the land.
So there's your trigger, and there's your attack. Now, one thing that Tietze does have in his hand, he has not one but 2 Azorius Charms in the grip. He already has 1 in the graveyard too, so he's drawn 3 of that fantastic card, and it's going to make things difficult for Turtenwald.
So he can just bury Owen's creatures on top of the deck. He can Azorius Charm once. Whether or not he, with the second one, chooses to put a creature on top or draw a card really depends on whether or not he has an Elspeth Sun's Champion.
So he's going to put back the Firefish Striker with the first Azorius Charm. He's going to cast the second one, says put that on top too. Pass the turn back does Tietze. Draws a card, plays a land. Oh boy,
And
there is the Sun Champion again.
This is why this matchup is really good for Maxis, because he actually, unlike some of the Revelation decks, has a legitimate tap-out way to win the game. He just, if he reaches 6 mana with an Elspeth, the game's pretty much done.
Yeah. This is very reminiscent of if you're kind of an old school player, been playing for a long time, and just see Turtenwald with his head in his hands trying to figure out how to beat that as Skeletal Vampire against those red decks back in the day. Just creating tokens as you see Lightning Strike going to come in here. It made life very, very difficult as it looks like Turtenwald probably has another Lightning Strike and has to kill the champion maybe?
Yeah, I mean, he knows his next 2 draws, so he can play pretty perfectly right here.
Yep. I see Tietze is going to say, double block maybe? Yep. Is this okay? Turtenwald says, yeah. Unfortunately, it is.
Yeah, his first draw there.
Strike again.
There you go. He got the Elspeth off the table. That's all the threats he had. That one remaining 1/1 is even going to trade with Founder Street Denizen. A huge, like Owen had 6 damage. He had in his head. In his head, he had Max down to 5, and then suddenly that changed. I think Owen may have kept on to the burn spells if he thought he could do more. Like if he thought there was more value to be gained. But the problem is he knows his top 2 cards. He knows none of them help.
Tietze is going to play a Jace and move it on down. So now you see a Last Breath, a Ratchet Bomb, and a Sphinx's Revelation. 3 spells, and they're all really, really good ones.
By itself, and Max is taking it. And Owen's next draw.
Oh, we know what it is.
It's Firefish Striker.
Yep.
And that's not going to help any.
Unfortunately for him, he's got to play it. He gets to trigger the Foundry Street Denizen.
So
He says attack.
It's a 1/1 now.
Yep. Well, it's a 2-1. Jace went down.
Oh, Jace went down.
Yeah,
It's a
Jace went
2/1.
down. Yep.
It's a 2/1.
But it's going to trade with the token either way.
Yeah,
so
right.
it's a moot point. As Plains is the draw here.
Untapped land is great for Max.
That means it's going to be a Rev for 4. As Tietze considering his options if he wants to go up or down with that Jace. I think he'd take it up.
You take it up. It's a Rev for 4, and Max still gets to keep the Jason play.
Yeah.
That's next to impossible for Owen to deal with.
The Revelation would have to be an epic miss, I think, for Turtenwald to be able to get back into this game.
And even if it's an epic miss, Jace gets to look for another try.
So Jace is going to tick up, we think. Tietze unsure.
Well, he's deciding whether or not he wants to Revelation first to see what he's supposed to do with the Jace.
Sure.
You know, there's no reason to Revelation. Because his hand's small, he doesn't need to Revelation at instant speed. He can do it at sorcerer speed. And I think he caught himself on that play.
So he's going to ref for 4 first. He wants to get the information on what I draw, which is a land, a divination, a mutavault.
3 lands and a divination.
Yeah. And now Jace is going to tick up. Not the best of draws off of that. He's got redraws, of course, with Jason Divination, but if you're Turtenwald, you got to be pretty happy about that. Going to draw a card off the top here, see what he finds.
Yeah, I mean, it's not another revelation. You know, there's that.
He plays a Mutavault and passes the turn back. And there's an Azorius Guildgate, so he's fading right now.
I mean,
Some big draw steps.
The thing is that Mutavault he could play is actually just enough to stop Owen's attacks. Owen's creatures are going to lose 1 power. You know, Fire for Striker is a 1/1 on attacks that can't even swing through Mutavault.
Essence Scatter and Plains with a draw off the Divination. There is that troublesome Mutavault there from Tietze, and you see exactly how good. You know, Jace is interesting because obviously it's a great card drawing engine, but as you see a Hammer of Porphyros come down for Turtenwald, it's funny because against the red deck, the plus ability is very, very good. Against maybe a green-white strategy, it's nowhere near as good. Here's Syncopate for the Hammer, so that sideboard card's not going to change things at all. Turtenwald going to get into the Jace, put it down to 1, and pass the turn back, but you can see just how powerful this blue Planeswalker is.
Jace is a great draw spell. I think the reason we didn't see it in play in Standard earlier was just because Think Twice provided what this deck needed better than Jace did. But Jace is, once you get it down, it's more powerful.
Yeah. Here is a Rakdos Cackler. Turtenwald wondering, does this resolve?
Probably not. At this point, I think Max just counters everything.
Essence Scatter says, I don't think so.
Eventually, Max will draw another Revelation or an Elspeth, and when he does, the game will be over. You know, Owen's just showing discipline here by continuing to play, to be quite honest.
You know, there is a scenario where the opponent just does draw 1,000,000 lands and he can get back in this game. That can happen, so you have to play on and hope for the best. No reason to concede when you're in the elimination rounds, right? If you're dead, it's your last game. So there's a Gorehouse Chainwalker. Unleashed, I'm going to pass it back. So now Tietze is going to draw his card. Looks like he wants to figure out what he wants to do with the Jace. Do I want to go down? Do I want to go up? Not quite sure.
Yeah, he drew an Azorius Charm last turn. I mean, he can draw. Like, it's interesting because Azorius Charm drawing a card and putting one of Owen's attackers back is actually really functionally the same thing. They both just. I think you draw a card because it makes the game go faster. And if you're Max, you know, you may or may not want the game to go faster. Oh boy,
that'll make the game go faster.
Yep.
Rev versus. Yep.
The Jace might die here. I actually don't even think it has to. He can just.
I think if the Jace dies, I think that Tietze is okay with that. Now he's got his second Revelation.
He'll find another one when he draws 1, 2. He draws 7 cards off this Revelation. He'll find something.
I'm not a math scientist. I don't know what the percentages of him drawing another one are.
Good enough.
Okay.
I think when you play control decks, even though there are questions like that where math is involved, I don't actually think it's much of a math problem. I think you do it a lot more by strategy. You know, how much are you going to draw? Well, enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's. You know, the question isn't like how much are your odds improving. It's more, you know, do I need to cast it yet? You're asking questions like that.
You can see exactly why as Turtenwald's going to activate here his Mutavault and get his attacks on. Not sure exactly where he's going.
1 at Jace, 2 at Max.
Yeah, but you can see exactly why this Jace Architect of Thought was a dominant card at Pro Tour Dragon's Maze and really what these Esper decks were built around, because this card, again, can dominate a game all by itself.
So Max is going to start with Celestial Flare. That hits Mutavault. I'm surprised that hit Mutavault.
I'm a touch surprised.
Hit the Firefist Striker.
Well, he's going to activate his own Mutavault.
Max isn't even going to cast the Revelation.
He doesn't need to yet.
Like I said, the best Revelation in Magic is the one that you never cast because you never had to.
And there is Azorius Charm. Put that Gorehouse Chainwalker back on top. Fire Structure of the graveyard. Turtenwald with a Rakdos Cackler. Unleash the Beast and pass the turn back.
It's the last card in his hand. We know the card on top of his deck. Max is just going to play some more lands plus some Jaces.
Yep. Turtenwald just immediately slams that into play.
I mean, as soon as that Jace puts Jace back down to 1.
And Revelation is a lot of fun. This is going to be for, looks like an 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, it's going to be 8.
It is an 8. Max will go to 23, draw 8 cards, one of which I believe could be a Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, you saw a Supreme Verdict there.
Elspeth Sun's Champion, I believe I also caught in there. So, just everything.
Yeah. it all, as it were, as he's going to play a Plains. Quick update for you guys. You do see Jace tick up. Christian Calcano has defeated Jared Betcher. Betcher did win in game number 1 of that Esper Mirror. As you see, Tietze is going to tap 6 mana. You were correct on Elspeth Sun Champion, and that
Owen,
is going to do
finally
it.
gets the concession. Waited until now. I think he needed to see that Max would win the game.
So the winner of this match is going to be Max Tietze. The